Voice, Ripple News and XRP Price Update. Today, July 1st. Hello everyone and welcome back to XRP Marco, your trusted source for the latest Ripple and XRP news, market updates, and everything happening across the crypto world. If you're following XRP closely, today's update is packed with important developments that could shape the months ahead. Ripple continues making major moves behind the scenes. Institutional interest is still growing, and the XRP price is trying to recover after one of its toughest periods this year. While many investors are focused only on the recent price decline, there is much more happening beneath the surface that deserves attention. In today's report, we'll break down Ripple's newest partnerships, the latest ETF activity, the growing stablecoin ecosystem, key technical signals, historical market trends, upcoming regulatory catalysts, and where analysts believe XRP could be heading next. There is a lot to cover, so let's jump right into today's Ripple and XRP update. Ripple continues proving that it has no intention of slowing down its long-term expansion strategy. Even while the broader crypto market remains under pressure, the company keeps building partnerships and expanding its presence in areas that could eventually support large-scale blockchain adoption. One of the biggest announcements came just hours ago when Ripple officially revealed that it has become a day-one integration partner for OpenUSD, also known as OUSD. This move strengthens Ripple's position within the growing multi-chain financial infrastructure designed specifically for institutional users. Rather than focusing only on retail adoption, Ripple appears determined to build the tools that banks, payment providers, and financial institutions may rely on in the future. This latest partnership highlights the company's continued focus on becoming an essential part of global blockchain-based payments instead of simply competing as another cryptocurrency project. OpenUSD itself is attracting enormous attention throughout the financial industry. The stablecoin has been created by the independent Open Standard Organization with the goal of making international payments faster, cheaper, and more reliable for businesses operating across multiple countries. Unlike many stablecoins currently available, OpenUSD has been designed specifically for large-scale institutional use. Even before its official launch, expected later in 2026, the project has already secured support from several of the biggest names in global finance. Companies including BlackRock, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Coinbase, and many others have backed the initiative, creating excitement across both traditional finance and crypto communities. Ripple's decision to become one of the very first integration partners places the company directly alongside some of the world's most influential financial institutions, reinforcing its strategy of positioning itself at the center of future digital payment infrastructure. Ripple has also continued expanding internationally with another significant achievement coming from Japan. The company recently received approval from Japan's Financial Services Agency to introduce its own stablecoin in the country. Japan has long been viewed as one of the world's most regulated and respected crypto markets, making this approval an important milestone for Ripple's international ambitions. Regulatory clarity has always been one of Ripple's biggest priorities, and securing authorization in such a major financial market demonstrates growing confidence in the company's technology and compliance standards. As governments around the world continue developing digital asset regulations, Ripple appears determined to establish itself within fully regulated environments rather than waiting for uncertainty to disappear. Not long after receiving approval in Japan, Ripple also reminded investors about another major initiative involving its RLUSD stablecoin. The company announced that it committed $25 million worth of RLUSD to programs supporting underserved small business owners across the United States, along with career development initiatives designed for military veterans. While these announcements may not immediately move XRP's price, they demonstrate Ripple's broader vision beyond simply issuing digital assets. The company continues investing in real-world financial inclusion while expanding practical use cases for blockchain technology. These efforts help strengthen Ripple's public image and reinforce its commitment to creating products with long-term economic value rather than focusing solely on speculative trading activity. Despite all of Ripple's progress, the stablecoin market has become increasingly competitive. Recent figures show that RLUSD's market capitalization has slipped to around $1.4 billion, placing it among the larger cryptocurrencies but no longer climbing as rapidly as it did earlier this year. While some investors view this slowdown as disappointing, others see it as a natural pause following an impressive growth phase. Stablecoins compete in one of the fastest-moving sectors of crypto, where adoption depends heavily on institutional partnerships, liquidity, regulation, and market confidence. Ripple's management appears focused on continuing expansion instead of reacting to short-term fluctuations, suggesting they remain confident about the stablecoin's long-term role within the broader Ripple ecosystem. Institutional demand for XRP continues attracting attention despite the recent weakness in price performance. Over the past several weeks, investment products tied to XRP have continued recording stronger inflows than outflows, indicating that large investors remain interested in accumulating exposure. Pension funds, hedge funds, wealth managers, and other professional investors often take a much longer-term view than retail traders. Their continued participation suggests that many institutions still believe XRP could benefit from future regulatory clarity and expanding real-world adoption. While daily price action often creates emotional reactions among smaller investors, institutional money generally focuses more on multi-year opportunities than short-term volatility. Since the launch of the first spot XRP exchange-traded fund in the United States, interest has steadily expanded across multiple investment firms. Canary Capital was the first company to introduce a spot XRP ETF, opening the door for additional firms, including Bitwise, Franklin Templeton, 21 Shares, and Grayscale, to enter the market with similar products. Combined, these investment vehicles have reportedly attracted nearly $1.5 billion in cumulative net inflows. That level of demand demonstrates that institutional investors are increasingly willing to gain regulated exposure to XRP through traditional financial products rather than purchasing the token directly on crypto exchanges. For many market participants, this represents another step toward broader mainstream acceptance. One interesting aspect of current ETF activity is the contrast between XRP and other major cryptocurrencies. While investment products tied to Bitcoin and Ethereum have experienced notable outflows during recent months, XRP-related funds have continued attracting fresh capital. That difference has sparked conversations across the crypto community about whether institutions are beginning to diversify beyond the largest digital assets. Although no single trend guarantees future price appreciation, steady inflows during periods of market weakness often indicate underlying confidence among larger investors. This does not necessarily mean XRP will immediately outperform the rest of the market, but it certainly provides an encouraging signal for long-term holders watching institutional behavior closely. Turning to the price itself, XRP has undoubtedly experienced a difficult period. The token has spent much of the year struggling to maintain support above the important $1 level. At one point, XRP declined roughly 20% over a single month, creating frustration among investors who expected Ripple's business achievements to translate directly into stronger market performance. Yet despite these setbacks, XRP has repeatedly managed to defend the $1 psychological support area. That resilience has become an important focus for traders, since maintaining support during extended periods of bearish sentiment often lays the foundation for future recovery if broader market conditions begin improving. Technical analysts continue watching XRP closely for signs that momentum may finally be shifting. Earlier this week, respected market analyst Ali Martinez highlighted that the Tom DeMark sequential indicator had generated a buy signal on XRP. Historically, this indicator has occasionally identified areas where exhausted selling pressure begins giving way to renewed buying interest. Martinez also pointed toward increasing network activity, suggesting that blockchain usage itself remains healthy despite weaker price action. However, he also noted that large XRP holders, commonly referred to as whales, have recently reduced portions of their holdings. That mixed picture creates uncertainty, as rising network activity supports optimism, while declining whale exposure introduces a more cautious perspective for traders evaluating short-term market direction. Looking beyond technical indicators, historical seasonality offers another interesting perspective. Going all the way back to 2014, June has consistently ranked as XRP's weakest month for average returns. In fact, 7 of the last 10 Junes ended with XRP posting losses, often without any major negative news driving those declines. The median drop has historically been close to 9%, reinforcing the idea that seasonal patterns have repeatedly influenced XRP's performance. For experienced investors, this suggests that June weakness may not necessarily reflect fundamental problems with Ripple or XRP itself. Instead, it could simply represent a recurring market trend that has appeared multiple times throughout the asset's history. Interestingly, history tells a very different story once the calendar flips to July. Over the past decade, July has generally been XRP's strongest month, with 6 of the previous 10 Julys delivering positive returns. Historically, the median gain during July has exceeded 10%, making it one of the most favorable periods for XRP holders. Of course, historical performance never guarantees future results, and every market cycle brings unique challenges. Still, many traders closely monitor seasonal tendencies when combined with improving technical indicators and strengthening fundamentals. If history repeats itself once again, July could provide XRP with an opportunity to regain momentum following its difficult performance throughout June. Even so, investors should remain realistic about the broader economic environment. Cryptocurrency markets are currently facing multiple headwinds that extend well beyond Ripple itself. Investor sentiment across digital assets remains cautious, while significant capital continues flowing toward artificial intelligence companies and semiconductor stocks. At the same time, concerns surrounding inflation and future Federal Reserve policy continue influencing global financial markets. If interest rates remain higher for longer, liquidity available for higher-risk investments like cryptocurrencies may remain limited. These macroeconomic factors often outweigh individual company announcements, meaning Ripple's impressive business progress may still take time to fully translate into sustained price appreciation for XRP. Another major catalyst attracting attention is the proposed Clarity Act in the United States. The legislation aims to establish a comprehensive federal framework for regulating digital assets, providing greater certainty for both investors and financial institutions. The bill has already advanced through important legislative stages, bringing it closer to potential approval before Congress begins its August recess. If ultimately passed, many analysts believe the legislation could strengthen XRP's regulatory standing and encourage additional institutional participation. Although no outcome is guaranteed, greater regulatory clarity would likely remove one of the biggest uncertainties that has surrounded XRP for years, potentially opening the door for broader adoption across traditional finance. Artificial intelligence models have also started weighing in on XRP's long-term outlook. One recent forecast from Claude Fable 5 estimated a base case scenario placing XRP near $1.70 by the end of 2026, assigning roughly a 50% probability to that outcome. Under a more bullish scenario, the model projected XRP reaching approximately $2.80 if several favorable conditions align. Those conditions include passage of the Clarity Act, multiple Federal Reserve rate cuts, a strong Bitcoin recovery, and continued growth in weekly XRP ETF inflows. On the other hand, the model also outlined a bearish scenario where XRP could fall toward 80 cents if regulatory progress stalls and the important $1 support level fails to hold. Like all AI predictions, these estimates should be viewed as possibilities rather than guarantees. As we wrap up today's update, the overall picture surrounding Ripple and XRP remains both challenging and encouraging at the same time. Ripple continues expanding its global partnerships, securing regulatory approvals, building stablecoin infrastructure, and strengthening relationships with major financial institutions. Institutional investors continue showing interest through ETF inflows, while historical trends suggest July has often marked the beginning of stronger performance following weak Junes. At the same time, broader macroeconomic uncertainty, cautious market sentiment, and ongoing regulatory developments continue influencing short-term price action. Whether XRP ultimately delivers the recovery many investors are waiting for will depend on a combination of technical strength, institutional adoption, regulatory progress, and overall market conditions. One thing is certain: Ripple continues building regardless of temporary price fluctuations, and the coming months could prove to be some of the most important in XRP's history. Thanks for watching XRP Marco. If you enjoyed today's update, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest Ripple news and XRP price updates.